Welcome back to Round the Cauldron, where we talk theology, philosophy, and everyday life as a modern witch. If you like the show, please leave a review wherever you listen to help other witches find me. Don't forget, you can help support the show at patreon.com/roundthecauldron for as little as $1 a month and get patron-exclusive content. If you're ready to hop into the show, grab some coffee, pull up a seat, and join me round the cauldron. Today, I want to talk about dream interpretation and the significance of dreams in your spiritual practice. Before we talk about dreams in a spiritual sense, we need to talk about some biological and some physiological things about dreams first. Like always, any source or link or article or any of that, those are all going to be in the description and in the show notes below so that you can reference the same things that I'm referencing. So the first thing that we need to discuss in regards to dreams is the age-old question. Why do we dream? Why do we dream? Well, the truth behind that, according to several sources, is that nobody really knows for sure why we dream. We do know that dreams aren't limited to the human species because animals dream as well. But scientists haven't really pinpointed an exact reason for dreams. Do they have a purpose? Are they just something that our mind does to keep us occupied at night while we're sleeping or whenever we're sleeping? Nobody really knows. But there are several different theories on the purpose of dreams. Some scientists think that dreams are a component and form of memory processing that helps us with the consolidation of learning and moving memories from short-term memory to long-term memory. Another theory that some scientists have is that dreams are just an extension of our conscious mind. They just serve to reflect the experiences and emotions that we felt while we were awake. And then another theory, which is popular among several different branches of psychology, is that dreams serve as a way for the mind to process difficult or complex or unsettling emotions, desires, urges, and experiences that we may have had during the day or any time during our life. Now, these are just a handful of theories, and there are probably as many theories on why we dream out there as there are scientists that are studying dreams. We might not never know if there is a definitive biological or physiological reason for us to dream. We just know that it happens. Now, there are some things that can affect our dreams and our ability to dream. So according to one source, those who have major depressive disorder or anxiety tend to have more nightmares because of their mental health disorder and their condition. And then according to that same source, for anyone taking an SSRI, which stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, it's a form of antidepressant, or I don't think it's considered a mood stabilizer, but it is a medication like Prozac or Zoloft, antidepressants. The source says that anyone taking an SSRI might have a harder time recalling their dreams, and that the SSRI can actually affect what these people dream about. So that is something to keep in mind going forward with doing things like dream interpretation. If you have any medical conditions, I know even some different foods have been shown to affect your dreams, things like alcohol as well. If there are any other outside influences, those are things that you should keep in mind during your dream interpretation. The fact that SSRIs really affect or can affect dream recall in people that take them makes a lot of sense for me, and I never put two and two together. I never thought that SSRIs would make a difference, but I am a person that struggles really hard with remembering dreams. Sometimes I'll remember them and it'll be so vivid and I can remember every detail. sometimes I can only remember bits and pieces. Like I had a dream I'm surprised. I remember 2 dreams from last night, and I think it's just because I was gathering my notes and research last night before sitting down to record this. But one dream, I remember I was driving my car and I turned down a street, and then there's another car on fire, and it explodes, and then I have to pull my car off to the side of the road because it is overheating, and I can see like the engine is turning red and there's flames, and I'm like, what? Um, and then the second dream involved one of my childhood schools and playing like flag football. And I have no idea why, because those are really strange dreams for me, but my dreams tend to be on the strange side. Um, anyway, so that has nothing to do with why we dream. But I guess it gives an insight into how weird my brain can be. But it's normal. And apparently it's caused by, or it might be caused by my medication. Didn't know that. So, biological and physiological aspects aside, there is a little bit of history that we can cover in terms of dream interpretation. Now, the first person to really bring dream interpretation to the forefront of psychology was none other than Sigmund Freud. Now, Freud and I have a complicated relationship. On one hand, Freud has some legitimate theories behind psychology and with his practice of psychoanalysis. On the other hand, Freud has things like the Oedipus complex that don't make any sense to me and have been debunked by psychologists and scientists like a long time ago. If you don't know what the Oedipus complex is, I'll leave a link in the description and in the show notes below. Before Freud, though, there are so many different cultures around the world that have their own ideas behind dreams and dream interpretation. I can't speak for all of them because I can't research every single culture in the world and what they believe on dreams, but I can speak from the experience of an Irish pagan. So in a lot of Irish mythology and folklore, there appears to be a correlation between dreams and omens and visions. So we can only guess at this point because we don't, or I don't have access to all of the manuscripts and I can't read ancient Irish. But I can only guess at this point based on that correlation that the ancient Irish people put stock in dreams when they were interpreted to have meaning. Now, I don't know if all dreams were considered to be some sort of omen or if it was just certain dreams or dreams by certain people. That I'm not sure. But based on the folklore and the mythology that I do have access to, it does appear that the ancient Irish peoples did put stock in dreams as visions and omens. Now, in 1899, published in 1900, Sigmund Freud wrote a book called The Interpretation of Dreams, and that became the prominent resource, I guess you would say, on dream interpretation from a psychological perspective. Now, remember, Sigmund Freud is essentially what I would call the father of psychoanalysis. He is the one that started things that involved analyzing psychological processes and things that went on in the minds of people. And according to Freud, dreams were a mechanism essentially to help us figure out our desires. Dreams were a method of wish fulfillment. And I will leave a link in the description and in the show notes. Freud's book is out of copyright, so it is freely available for you to read if that's something that you're interested in. But Freud says that dreams are a method of wish fulfillment, and he says that the evidence for this is essentially the way that children dream. So Freud says that if you look at what children dream about, it is very basic wish fulfillment. They dream about something that they want, and in their dreams, they get that wish. But for adults, it is more complex. And he says that there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into interpreting dreams from a psychoanalytical perspective. A lot of it I'm not too versed on, so I'm not going to talk about that in particular. But I think it's important to understand where Freud is coming from in terms of his interpretation of why we dream. Now, after Sigmund Freud and his book, several other psychologists developed their own theories, and this includes Carl Jung, who is considered to be the father of shadow work. And that is something that I find very interesting because of the way I see dreams. And it's interesting for me to see the correlation between shadow work and dream interpretation and how Carl Jung developed shadow work as a psychological practice. Okay, so psychological processes aside, what about the spiritual practices of dream interpretation, the spiritual purpose of dreams? I am of the opinion that you can't separate the psychological and the spiritual completely. And this is mainly because of the idea of shadow work and my belief that when we dream, not always, but sometimes, when we dream, we are unlocking a part of our subconscious that is hidden away from us when we're awake, that contains our shadow and our ego and the superego, and all of those parts of ourselves are really able to come to the front, and we can see how they play out together in our dreams. As far as spiritual practices and spiritual interpretations of dreams, there are a lot of different schools of thought. Some of the most common schools of thought in regards to dreams and spiritual practice include dreams being prophecies and omens, dreams that process or open part of the shadow, a means of communication between yourself and the collective consciousness, and a means of communication between you and other higher beings, including spirits, ancestors, and deities. There's also another side to dreams that gives rise to the belief in the collective consciousness and that dreams are a doorway to the other world. And this is lucid dreaming and astral travel. Those are things that I'm going to cover either in another podcast episode or other videos. Not entirely right now because they don't really have to do with dream interpretation. They're separate things on their own. But that is an interesting correlation for me to make. As far as these different theories on spiritual interpretations of dreams, I actually do think that all of these can be true. For me personally, I believe that they are. That's going to differ for a lot of people. Some people might not believe that dreams can contain prophecies and omens. Some people might believe that you can't communicate with the other world or higher beings in your dreams. And some people are going to believe that dreams are just a way to process the things that have happened during your previous day. As far as my beliefs go, like I said, I do believe that all of these different theories, spiritual-wise, are true. I believe that it is possible to have visions of the future or even glimpses into a distant past through your dreams. And this can be either a natural gift that you have, or it can be something that was bestowed upon you through the collective consciousness or from your higher beings that you interact with. So how do you interpret your dreams? I might have an unpopular opinion here. I'm going to say that it depends. I know in a lot of things that I talk about, my answer is always, it depends. It depends on tradition. It depends on experience. But as far as dream interpretation goes, it's going to depend on your beliefs. So if you are someone who does not believe that dreams can hold prophecies and omens, then that dream that you had about you getting a new car or whatever, You're not going to believe that that's a prophecy or an omen. You might be more inclined to believe that it is, as Freud puts it, a form of wish fulfillment. Now, I know that's a really outlandish example, but it serves its purpose. So, as far as interpreting your dreams, there's no consensus on what different symbols and situations mean. I know there are loads and loads of books and websites out there that will say, let me interpret your dreams for you. Here's what this symbol means, and here's what this symbol means. But there's no real consensus across all spiritual paths, across all psychological theories. There's no consensus on what specific situations mean. If you look at it from a psychological perspective, there was an example that I had found that talked about someone telling their therapist about a dream that they had where they were in a car and it was speeding down the road. They were in the back seat. There was no driver, and they come across a red light, but the car wouldn't stop. So the way that example went through the process of dream interpretation was that the patient, in this case the person that had the dream, spoke with their therapist and went through a motion of like free association. I don't think that's exactly what it was called, but that sounds about right. They went through this process where they associated these different symbols and situations from their dream to things that were happening in their life. Free association is, in my opinion, a really good method of interpreting your dreams because only you know what's happening in your life and in your mind. So in this example, the patient worked with the therapist to figure out that the car was essentially her life and it was heading towards one direction, and she didn't have control because her parents wanted her to go to med school, but she wanted to be a writer, and she was heading in a direction that she wasn't happy with and didn't know how to stop. So that's just one example of dream interpretation, and that's from a psychological perspective. So if you look at things from a spiritual perspective, you really need to have a good understanding of your own spiritual beliefs. So say you associate a particular animal with a deity and you keep having dreams about this animal, and maybe it's a cat, okay? And you're having dreams about this cat, and the cat is taking you down a path and leading you somewhere, but you don't know where. So for me, if I were to have a dream like that and remember it, I would automatically associate that with Brige. Now, UPG here, which means unverified personal gnosis. I will talk about those in another episode too. But that basically means my own personal belief and association with a particular deity, and it's not something that has been verified through folklore, okay? I associate Brige with cats because of Brige's association with the hearth and domesticated animals. If I were to have a dream where a cat was leading me down a path through the woods or down the beach or something, I would automatically associate that with Brige and her trying to lead me on a path to a specific place. If you don't have any sort of associations like that, you might have no idea what the dream means, and you might just brush it off as something that your subconscious is doing to process some thing that happened to you during the day, okay? So I do believe that you need to have a solid foundation in your spiritual path and be open-minded to different possibilities. So I wanted to show you, or tell you, podcast listeners, how there's really no consensus on what symbols mean in dreams. So I have this website open here, mydreamvisions.com. And it's a dream analyzer. It says find the meaning of dreams, symbols, and themes. It does say at the bottom, this dream dictionary gives suggested meanings of dream symbols. There is no single standard meaning of a dream symbol or dream. Dream meaning is very subjective, and your dream symbol may mean something completely different from the meaning listed in this dream dictionary. It's exactly what I've been saying. But I want to type in here really quick just to see what this dream analyzer thinks of my car exploding and overheating dream. Okay, so I'm going to type that in here and see what it says. It says, briefly describe your dream. So I'm going to type in and say, driving my car turned down a street and saw other cars catch fire and explode. My car overheated and the engine turned bright red and also caught fire. All right, so let's see what this dream analyzer says. Analyze. Driving. Okay, so it came up with different situations. It came up with driving, engine, fire, red, vivid color, illumination, automobile, getting caught, descending, low, explosion. Okay, so it says that me being the driver can represent the way I'm running my life right now or recently. An engine, motor, or other source of mechanical power could represent work or effort, how well something works, such as your body or you in a certain environment or relationship. Fire. A fire igniting can represent a trigger or a beginning of a process likely to bring life, heat, destruction, cleansing, etc. So, I mean, if I really wanted to sit down and analyze this dream where cars were exploding and catching fire and stuff, I mean, I could, I guess, but I'm just gonna chalk it up to being a weird dream. I mean, that's just what I'm gonna chalk it up to. I am the kind of person that has difficulty with dream recall. So a lot of the times my dreams just sort of go away, go somewhere, and I forget about them. There are certain times though where I will have recurring dreams and then I remember them. And I guess I should probably analyze this recurring dream that I used to have as a kid. I don't know why I remember it, but it was it had something to do with being in like an old school theater and hands coming and like pressing against the screen, you know, in like the old school theaters where it was cloth or something like that, and hands were pressing against it and coming out of the screen, and then I could touch it and my hand would go through it. I don't know how many times I had this dream as a kid, but it is one that I remember, and I have no idea what it means, and honestly, I had forgotten about it until just now. So recurring dreams are something that I would put stock in and say, okay, maybe I need to interpret this or analyze it. As far as other dreams, I don't really have the patience and the memory to analyze or interpret all of my dreams unless it's one that really sticks out to me. So for developing a dream interpretation practice, the first thing that I would recommend is to keep a dream journal. This is something that is recommended on a lot of different websites and sources that talk about beginning a dream interpretation practice, and it's a good idea. So, I mean, if you're gonna analyze your dreams and interpret them, you obviously want to remember them. So the first step in dream interpretation is keeping a dream journal. And a dream journal is essentially a journal that you write in when you first wake up in the morning, and you write down everything that you can remember from any of the dreams that you had the night before. And then you go through and you analyze them. You pick out symbols and themes and situations that might have meaning in your life. In my opinion, dream interpretation is extremely subjective, and no one will be able to tell you with 100% certainty what your dreams mean. They might be able to shed some insight onto different symbols and associations and themes and situations in your dreams, but the only person who will really be able to analyze it and interpret it accurately is you. So it might be something worth looking into if that's something that interests you. For me, it's on a case-by-case basis, especially given the fact that I have a couple different mental health issues and I am on an SSRI. I don't put a lot of stock in my dreams because I'm on a medication that affects my serotonin. But for anybody else, if it's something that you're interested in, go for it. Keep a dream journal. If anything, it would be interesting to look back on your dreams and see maybe how your dreams reflected what you were feeling at that time. Maybe you were going through a rough situation in your life, and looking back on it, maybe your dreams will reflect that. And maybe you might find some different themes and commonalities between your dreams and your waking life. It might be interesting to see. So if you have any other suggestions on best practices for dream interpretation, I'd love to hear them. Leave them in the comments below, or podcast listeners, leave them on the show notes page, or send me an email or reach out on social media. And maybe if you have a dream that you have assigned meaning to, or maybe if you want to try to interpret my car exploding and catching fire dream, I'd love to hear what you think it means. Let me know. Reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, website. All of the links are in the show notes and in the description below, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.